Hello everyone, welcome to Tennis Fan Video. Another wonderful win for Alexandria. Cheering, listen to that noise. Thank you, Jasmine, she says. Pin gracious as ever in defeat. 2 million Filipino fans took over California, and that number alone tells you everything about how completely Indian Wells got rewritten this year. The BNP Paribas Open, one of tennis's most prestigious Masters events, got absolutely overwhelmed by supporters of a 19-year-old the WTA establishment still treats as an emerging name rather than a confirmed force. The Filipino army showed up without waiting for a seeded ranking, without a Grand Slam title behind their player, and without any invitation from the tennis world's gatekeepers. They flooded California during tournament week. Regardless, Martina Navratilova, a woman who has watched the sport evolve across multiple generations with genuine talent and manufactured hype, both crossing her radar, got shocked. 20-year-old Filipino tennis star Lexi has sent Melbourne Park crowds into an absolute frenzy that will go live to Ali Hag, who's in Garden Square for us this evening. The sheer scale of what was unfolding around Alex Eala revealed something about women's professional tennis that even a legend of her caliber hadn't quite anticipated. Navratilova's initial response was to evaluate Eala's actual game. She called her crafty, a word carrying serious weight when it comes from an 18-time Grand Slam champion. Her second observation, though, is where the assessment took a genuinely unexpected turn because she pinpointed exactly why Eala, despite all this extraordinary momentum, could still hit a very real ceiling. This channel breaks down what mainstream tennis coverage glosses over. Subscribe now if you're not already here. What Navratilova flagged in Eala's technique is the one thing her Filipino army can't fix from the stands. To understand the full weight of what unfolded at the BNP Paribas Open, you need context that most mainstream coverage skipped over entirely. Alex Eala is Filipino-born, trained extensively through the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca, Spain, and carries mastery that resonates deeply within the Filipino diaspora, one of the largest overseas communities in the world. There are approximately 4.00 million Filipinos living in the United States alone, with a significant concentration in California. When Eala entered the Indian Wells draw, she wasn't just another young talent attempting to make noise in a loaded WTA field. For millions of people across California and beyond, she represented something far bigger than a tennis ranking. The fan mobilization that followed wasn't spontaneous. Filipino community organizations, fan clubs operating under the broader Eala Army banner, and diaspora networks across Southern California coordinated attendance drives, viewing parties, and travel arrangements weeks before the tournament began. Social media groups with hundreds of thousands of members were actively organizing. By the time tournament week arrived, the physical presence of Filipino supporters inside and around the Indian Wells Tennis Garden was impossible to ignore. Music practice sessions, events that typically draw a few dozen curious spectators, were drawing crowds that veterans of the tournament circuit described as genuinely unusual. Players warming up on outside courts regularly compete for space on the practice schedule, but Eala's sessions were drawing audiences that made them feel closer to exhibition events. Staff members were reportedly caught off guard by the volume of people gathering simply to watch a teenager work through her pre-match preparation. What made this even more remarkable was the organizational discipline of the crowd. These weren't chaotic gatherings that supporters came with handmade banners, Philippine flags, coordinated outfits, and a knowledge of tennis etiquette that demonstrated this wasn't a casual celebrity crowd. It was a legitimate fan base with a genuine understanding of the sport they were watching. That combination of passion and knowledge is rare, and it was visible throughout the tournament grounds. The broader figure of 2 million fans references the combined reach of this mobilization: in-person attendance, organized statewide viewing events, and a documented community gatherings across California during the tournament window. This figure circulated widely through Filipino sports communities and fan networks, tracking the Eala effect at the tournament. Whether measured by physical presence or cultural impact, the scale of Filipino support surrounding Eala at Indian Wells had no real precedent in recent WTA history. Alex Eala was born on May 23, 2005 in the Philippines. She turned professional in 2021 and has been developing her game within a trajectory that reflects serious long-term planning rather than rushed exposure to the senior tour. Her junior career alone signaled genuine elite potential. Eala won the 2021 Rolong Roast Girls singles title, making her the first Filipino player to win a junior Grand Slam singles title in the Open era. She backed that up with the 2022 U.S. Open Girls Singles Championship, giving her 2 junior Grand Slam titles before she had even settled fully into senior competition. These weren't flukes. They were results built on consistent performance across different surfaces and conditions against the best junior talent in the world. The transition from junior success to senior relevance is where most promising players hit their first real wall. The WTA Tour is unforgiving. The competition density at every level is significant, and young players often spend years rebuilding their game to meet senior demands. Eala's senior progression, while measured, has shown the kind of steadiness that scouts and analysts associate with players who eventually break into the top tier rather than plateau outside it. She has been climbing the WTA rankings with results that reflect genuine competitive growth. Music, not wild upsets or lucky draws, but accumulated match wins against opponents who test every element of her game. Her groundstroke construction is sophisticated for her age, particularly her ability to generate angles from the baseline that force opponents into uncomfortable positions. Her court coverage is above average, and her tactical decision-making in extended rallies shows the kind of chess player thinking that coaches spend years trying to develop in young professionals. The Rafa Nadal Academy background is worth noting here. Players who develop under that system tend to share a common foundation: high physical conditioning standards, relentless baseline discipline, and an ability to manage long points without losing competitive focus. Eala fits that mold. Her fitness levels and mental composure under pressure are frequently cited by analysts as qualities that separate her from peers at a similar stage of career development. That be why the time Indian Wells 2025 arrived, Eala had built enough of a professional record that her presence in the draw wasn't a storyline built purely on potential. There were actual results on the board that justified attention from people following the WTA Tour. Seriously, Martina Navratilova's career statistics require no lengthy introduction for any serious tennis audience. 18 Grand Slam singles music titles, 31 Grand Slam titles across singles, doubles, and mixed music doubles, a span of competitive dominance that stretched from the mid-1970s through the early 2000s. Navratilova isn't a commentator who offers vague encouragement. When she evaluates Applier's game publicly, the substance oft-had evaluation carries real weight within the sport. Her response to Eala's Indian Wells moment was characterized by 2 distinct observations, and it's important to understand both rather than fixating a known at the expense of the other. The first observation was genuinely affirming. Navratilova used the word crafty to describe Eala's approach on court. In the context of professional tennis analysis, crafty isn't a backhanded compliment. It's a specific recognition of tactical intelligence. A crafty player reads the court well, constructs points deliberately rather than relying purely on power or pace, and understands how to use the opponent's positioning against them. Navratilova identifying this quality in a 19-year-old is meaningful because court craft is often the last attributado fully develop in young professionals, not the first. The second observation is where Navratilova's assessment became a genuine talking point. Music. She identified Eala's serve as the area off her game requiring the most significant development before she could compete consistently at the deepest levels of the WTA Tour. This isn't a minor technical note. At elite professional level, the serve functions as the foundational weapon that sets you up everything else. A player with a limited serve faces a structural disadvantage against top opponents who can read and return it comfortably, no matter how intelligent or well constructed the rest of their game might be. Navratilova's specific concern centered on the lack of a dominant serve weapon in Eala's current arsenal. Eala can place her serve and vary it reasonably well, but the pace and the ability to generate free points on first serve, what coaches and analysts call serve dominance, isn't yet at the level demanded by the top 20 of the WTA rankings. Against opponents ranked outside the top 50, this gap is manageable. Against players who sit consistently in the top 10, it becomes a match-defining liability. What made Navratililova's assessment resonate across tennis circles is that it wasn't delivered as discouragement. It was framed as the honest identification of the one specific gap standing between where Eala is now and where her talent suggests she could reach. A legend pointing at a specific fixable problem isn't a verdict. It's a roadmap. The conversation around Eala following Indian Wells has split into two distinct camps within the tennis community. The first camp points to her junior Grand Slam titles, her age, her academy background, and the sheer pace of her senior development as evidence that she's tracking toward a top 20 career at minimum with music legitimate ceiling beyond, that if her serve development accelerates. This group views the Filipino fan support not as noise surrounding a mid-tier player, but as sincerely recognition of a future major contender. The argument here is that fan bases of this scale don't organize around players without substance, and the 2 million strong California mobilization reflects music, instinct developed through watching someone compete with genuine elite level potential. The second camp is more cautious. They point to the history of junior Grand Slam champions who never converted that promise into senior relevance. The serve vulnerability Navratilova identified and the brutal depth of the current WTA Tour's reasons to temper expectations. The women's game right now features exceptional talent across a wider age range than at almost any point in the modern era. And breaking into the top 20 requires not just potential music, but consistent, fully formed weapons across every phase of the game. Both camps agree on one thing. The Indian Wells moment was real. The fan support was real, and Navratilova's interest in Eala's development is real. For a 19-year-old still climbing into the consciousness of the wider tennis world, having those three factors converge simultaneously at one of the sport's most prestigious events is a moment that doesn't arrive by accident. The serve development Navratilova identified as the gap in Eala's game isn't permanent, that it's trainable. Players have rebuilt and transformed their serving at this stage of career development before Eala's academy environment is precisely the kind of structure where that music work gets done with the right resources behind it. If the next 12 months show measurable progress in that specific area, the conversation around her ceiling will shift considerably. The Filipino army that took over California didn't just show up to celebrate where IIS write music now. They showed up because they believe they already know where she's going. That's the full picture. The fan mobilization that shook Indian Wells, the real substance behind Navratilova's reaction, and the one technical gap that will ultimately determine whether Alexa fulfills what her supporters already believe is inevitable. If this kind of detailed, unfiltered breakdown is what you want from tennis coverage, the subscribe button is right there. Every week, this channel goes deeper than the headlines, cuts through the noise, and gives serious tennis fans the analysis they're not getting anywhere else. Drop your take in the comments below. Is Navratilova right about the serve? Is the Filipino army seeing something the WTA establishment is still missing? The conversation continues down there, and this channel reads every single one. Subscribe, comment, share this with the tennis fan who needs to hear. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like, and share. Till next time.